an overview of some of the key things that I've learned in my journeys and my experiences about better coaching and becoming a better coach. And then also the science of coaching. So I coach at the moment. I'm coaching ice hockey, and so what it's allowed me to do is really kind of work in that gap between science and practice. And I recall at one event in New Zealand a few years back, somebody came up to me after the event and said, "You know what you are? You're a pracademic." I had never heard that term before, and I thought, well, okay, I'll take it. And actually, it's this idea that practical research. So, but it has to be meaningful and relevant for us in the field, right? So we don't do research just for the sake of research. So working in that gap allows us to kind of see the principles behind the practices. So we go and we talk to another coach, or we read a biography or see something on the news, think, well, that's a really neat idea. I want to use it with my team or try it with my team. But it's not about just blindly grabbing practices, right? It's about understanding the principle behind the practice. That's where we can really accelerate our development and our programs. What does good coaching look like? This is what I've seen. Number one, we know that it was not created for coaches. So we're on the call because we're coaches, or we work with coaches, and we want to get better as a coach. The quickest way to get better as a coach is to realize it's not about you. Sport was not created for coaches. It's created for the athletes. And I had Ron Adams in my class the other day, just yesterday. He's the coach with the Golden State Warriors and renowned coach of coaches. And again, he reiterated that when I asked him, what's the key to great coaching? And he said, well, number one is you got to care about people, because you're in the people business. You work with people, you build people. So it's about helping people meet their needs, not yours. You build athletes instead of use them. And unfortunately in youth sport, too often we're using athletes, right? And you even hear that in the language, coaches talking about lineups before a game or something. Who are we going to use at defense, or who are we going to use over here at first base? It's not about building kids. It's about using them. It's more a game for the adults than the kids, unfortunately. Again, number one, you're in the people business. You coach people first, sports second. And it's not a cliche. This is what I see with the best coaches around the world. There's an example from Jill Ellis, only coach to ever win 2 World Cups. I've had a chance to do some work with her over the years, and she'll be very clearly, she'll tell you right away, the key to my success is understanding that I coach people first, sports second. Sport is just our medium or our palette. It's really not initially about soccer or hockey or golf. It's about people who happen to play hockey or soccer or golf. Okay. The 4 things that I really want to focus on are introduce you or reinforce the idea of the 4 C's and feedback, creating peak experiences for our athletes, building trust, athlete to athlete, coach to coach, right? And then team culture, which is a hot topic that lots of people are talking about at the moment, and seems to be a new book around team culture coming out every few weeks. The target, what we're trying to do with our athletes, how we build people, how we build athletes. One framework that's been quite impactful is what we call the 4 C's of athlete outcomes or athlete development. And the 4 C's are competence, confidence, connection, and character. And this is now embedded in international and national sport coaching frameworks around the world. This is really how we should be evaluating our coaches and what we should be working towards. We give our athletes targets, right? These should be our targets as coaches.
There is no doubt, and the data is consistent all over the world with very, very few exceptions. The number of kids playing organised competitive sport around the world has declined significantly over the last 10 years. What I'm hoping to give you is some strategies and some techniques and some ideas, and give you some things to think about on how I think we can reconnect, re-engage. The most common question I get asked, colleagues around the world, is why do kids drop out at 14 or 15? And everyone thinks their sport is worse off than all the others, but it's universal. 14 or 15-year-old boys, typically girls 13 or 14, they drop out. And everyone's got a theory. Oh, it's because parents are soft and don't want kids to work. Or it's the internet. That's the problem. If we get rid of the internet, everyone will reconnect to sport. No. The reason why kids drop out of sport is the experiences no longer deliver them what they're looking for. The experiences that they're getting are no longer relevant or important to them. And the experiences delivered in sport come through generally 4 groups of people: coaches, parents, officials, grassroots level administrators. They're the ones who have the relationship with the athletes to deliver the experience that they're looking for. And if we're not building, strengthening, growing our relationships with our clients, with our athletes, if we're not doing that and we're not giving them the experiences that they're looking for, they'll leave the sport.
You know, I think there are changes, and where we see changes is in club by club, community by community, or, you know, hockey associations that you've worked with in your area. Just local groups of people that say, hey, we're going to do things a little bit differently. And I think that one of the biggest things on that front is just, you know, it's really hard to change everything from the top down. It's really about making changes in my community, in my association, in a collection of youth sports organizations. Because oftentimes the younger kids who are identified as talented get all these opportunities. And so they never train at 100% and they never recover. And every day is like just 70, 70, 70, and they don't get better like that. And so I've been working with a couple of kids to say, you know, show me your week. And it's 7 days in a row of stuff. And I'm like, what are your 100% days in this? And so they could maybe, you know, we'd have a female player who's practicing with my boys team, and that's a step up for her. So there's her 100% days. I'm like, where's your 15% recovery days? There are none. That's not good. Right. And so I think from just a standpoint of, you know, less but better in sport, maybe this will be a time where people start being more selective about what they do so that they make the most of their sporting things and then take a step back in these other times and have true recovery days. Right. When my kids don't want to go to the gym in the morning because they've been 4 days in a row and they're tired, I'm like, yeah, sleep in. And then they sleep till like 9:30 or 10. I'm like, sweet, they needed that today. You know, when I got on an airplane and I told people what I did, I said, you know, I work with schools or sports clubs and I, you know, do parent education and try to get them to kind of take a step back and a deep breath and let the experience belong to the kids. No one ever said, oh my God, what a stupid idea. Everyone said, oh my God, you have to come to my school. You have to come to my community. And so I knew that there was this need out there. And I remember telling people in the beginning, I felt like, you know, to use a surfing analogy, like I'm paddling in and this wave is coming and it's going to be needed. And I think we'll be on the wave when the wave starts to break.
All right, so there are 7 keys that we'll discuss today. The first one is connecting is listening, right? You want to listen effectively. And as coaches, I know personally, sometimes I just want players to do what I ask, just do what I ask you to do, but it's important that we listen to them so that we can understand how to better connect, right? So we shift that focus from inward to what I want them to do in order to, like, who are they and how can we best concentrate on what they need to get our goals, the team goals, our individual goals accomplished. Authenticity is what we're talking about, right? How can you be the most authentic self, be your most authentic self to get through to your players? When I was an assistant coach at Southeast Missouri State University's NCAA Division I school, I was coaching with one of my former assistant coaches when I was in college, John Ishii. John Ishii is from Mississippi, really big personality, and demanded that players play defense and like would get into you. That was his thing. He would get after players. And there was a kid from St. Louis who comes out of the game and he says to me, when I pull her out of the game, I want you to get into her. I want you to get all over her ass. get into her, let her know that we need her to step up. Look, we're going undefeated on the road. We have a chance to win the conference title. And I'm like, okay, Ish, I got you. I'm like, that's not even my personality. So she comes out of the game and she sits down next to me, but another player comes up and starts talking to me. I'm like, okay, Rachel, here's what you're doing. So Sonia comes out. I don't get to her until like 5 minutes later. So I finally go talk to her, and I'm talking to her just like I'm talking to you all because I'm being who I am. Halftime of the game, Ish is livid. Our head coach is like, his head's about to explode. I told you to get after her. We need to win this game. She can step up. I'm like, if I do that, she will never trust me again. That's not my personality. Like, you have to be authentically who you are to connect. And it's really, players can see it, right? So whatever's inside of us always comes out. And it's important that they know we believe what we're saying, or they're not going to buy in. And then stamina. When I was researching for this presentation today, this one really stood out to me because connecting takes energy. Like it's a lot of mental and emotional work to connect with players, to really deep dive, as someone said earlier, into their personal lives, and to keep all of that. And so that requires preparation, and it requires coaches to have the ability to recharge so that you can show up fully present for your players. So our next component of connecting is finding common ground. Now, as you all can see, all of this can happen like in person or online. We'll talk specifically at the end around like online ways to connect. But finding common ground is key because, you know, our players may not come from where we're from. They may not have the same background. They have different experiences. And so being able to find that commonality between coaches and players is key in terms of helping to build those bonds. And if we can try to see ourselves, you know, from their perspective, then it helps us understand and know them even that much better. All right, on to our next point. Keeping it simple. I will be honest, y'all, this is like the hardest one for me. As you can tell, I love to like talk and share, and I get very animated. And so keeping it simple helps connection because communication is clear. Communication, there's always the chance for miscommunication, but that increases when things aren't simple and they're made complicated. So some ways to keep it simple is to have more concise messages when possible, to really stick to the main point and think that one through, opposed to like jumping from here to there in conversation, and being repetitive. So if we know that we're going to, if one of the things I want to teach is how to keep your elbow in when shooting, because that's going to help you shoot more effectively, right? It's critical that I talk about that over and over and over again, as we all know, so that that can help players understand that that point is important. Perfect. All right, the inspirers, us connectors. When we connect with our kids, we inspire them through our actions, what we say, and our passion is what inspires our players. The worst thing is to be around a coach who doesn't want to coach. Like the people who come into the gym and they're dreading the gym or the court or the track or the field, wherever your sport is played, and they're not engaged. That's a challenge, right? We connect when we say our health and wellness is important, but we're not taking care of ourselves. It's a signal to our players that we really don't buy in and believe that. And so our values have to align with our actions. Over time, they'll see and know that this is who we are. So connectors live it, right?
Let's take a look at what we know about athletes, how people learn, okay? And I was able to distill what I found into 4 principles. Number 1, prior knowledge can help or hinder athlete learning. So we need to meet them where they are. And think about how often we design practices, lesson plans, training plans. We pull a bunch of drills out. So we design these great practices, but who knows if that's what they need? We need to meet them where they are, not what I want to teach. Effort, pre-testing, baseline testing, asking questions. Hey, we're going to try a new technique or tactic today. Has anybody ever heard of this before? Has anybody ever done this before in another team? So getting a sense of where they already are, and then layering on top of things they already know or think they know. Athlete motivation definitely directly influences learning. So we can't assume that just because I'm the coach and I'm telling them to do something, they're going to want to do it, or they're going to care to learn it, right? So the more they understand why, it's important to help them, not just tell them, this is what we're going to do, let's go. This is why we're going to do it this way. And I've had many times when I've coached kids in particular, we'll be doing something that is maybe a little bit unusual, a different kind of training activity. And they say, what's this have to, this isn't hockey. What's this have to do with hockey? So they're thinking that you have to make the connection for them. This is why we're doing it. This is how this relates to what we're trying to get better at. Being able to execute any skill is a puzzle, and there's lots of little pieces. So if you want to work on passing, they have to also have, footwork, positioning, decision-making skills, vision. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into being able to make a good pass, right? So we, as coaches, need to kind of pull apart our skills into puzzles and pull all those little puzzle pieces apart. Better practice. What does better practice look like?
So 2-eyed seeing, the concept of 2-eyed seeing refers to learning to see from one eye with the strengths of indigenous knowledge, and from the other eye with the strengths of Western knowledge, using both eyes together for the benefit of all. So that was a phrase that was coined by Elder Albert Marshall. Basically, is trying to combine the best of the Western knowledge and the best of indigenous knowledge, and being able to transfer that into one perspective of having. So in coaching around here, a lot of our leadership programs are focused on not just coaching the player, it's coaching the person. When you coach the person, you're able to coach the person as a whole. The concept of a wheel, we think very highly of. So it's mind, body, and spirit, where we do, our sports and rec department, we do everything with our mental health department. We like to have a safety net, and being able to talk to our youths and them having a safe and inviting environment to be in. And once they are safe and inviting, then they're able to participate at a higher level. And then we'd be able to have our coaches, have our leaders being able to create a positive environment for our coaches and for our youths to be able to participate in fairly safe and an inviting environment for them to be in.
I was a high school head coach. I got the job. My athletic director told me, good luck. I got a Division I coaching job. They handed me the keys and told me good luck. And so the unfortunate part about the sporting world today is the expectation is through the roof. The preparation and equipping is like in the basement. And so I'm super passionate about helping coaches and parents. The problem without a prescription continues to be a problem. And so one of the things I hear, the parents are crazy. Now, here's what I want you to know. Many of those coaches that say the parents are crazy are the exact same parent when they go to watch their child play. And so they're seeing one thing, but they're not seeing it in themselves. This is true for every time I talk to an organization or parent group or team. Never, ever, ever have I met with a group of people or sat with a parent, and when I talked about what we offer to kind of help create a positive sport experience for parents, never, ever, ever have I had a parent say, you know what, I don't think this is needed. Every parent and coach I've ever met with has said, man, do we need help in this category? Here's the unfortunate part. Never, ever, ever have I met one that thought it was them. And so the hard part is cultivating the ground so that people know, hey, this first begins in me. I want to tell you guys that I am not saying this so that other people can go practice this. I'm saying this because I want to be a father and a husband who does this in my own life. So coaches will say this, hey, they're crazy. Or they'll say, I'm the coach. I don't tell them how to parent. They don't need to tell me how to coach. They've never played a sport in their life. Listen, I don't care if they've never played a sport. It doesn't matter. And then they'll say, hey, I don't tell them how to parent, so they don't tell me how to coach. Will Ferrell makes a great statement. Hey, I'm doing this all for you so we can have fun. Over and over, what we see with parents, coaches, and athletes is we see people who their intentions are good, but their methods are off. And so what I often say about parents as we navigate this sport journey, and as leaders, we have to make a connection with parents. It is of the utmost importance because we have their most prized possession in our hands. But Will Ferrell says this, I'm doing this all for you so we can have fun. The majority of parents are not crazy. They're not ill-intended. We call it a misapplication of love. They love their son or daughter so much that they are doing things that unfortunately long-term can be detrimental. Here's what would be probably healthy is if we had meetings with parents and we asked them good questions about their children versus just getting frustrated over maybe some behavior that is really fixable. We just really don't understand the problem. And so when we connect with the family, we begin to learn those things. When we communicate with the family, we begin to learn those things. When we collaborate with the family, those things really begin to come to life. And then here's what we also have to do with the family. We have to celebrate with the family.
The big one is it gives us a massive opportunity to role model up close the values that we have and the beliefs that we have. We've got a ringside seat, as Brian said, to really uphold those values and sort of walk the walk so that our children see what we truly value and how we truly behave. And that carries a large amount of responsibility. Home has to remain home. And we talk to parents about this in pathway programs, that home needs to be a place of safety for children. They're under so much pressure these days, so much pressure with social media, everything else that they've got going on, that home needs to remain that safe haven for them. It needs to be a place where they're not judged. And also at home, we are trying to create, whether it be because we're a parent coach, we want multifaceted individuals. We want children who are being equipped with life skills that will allow them to thrive and succeed. Children who can show determination, resilience, good communicators, are self-reliant, are adaptable, are creative. When it comes to the point of what they choose they want to do, we've used sport as a really good vehicle and a really safe vehicle to help equip them with the skills that they need. It needs to be a space where they can be frustrated. You know, we need to allow them to say that they were annoyed with us as coaches, as parent coaches, and they need to be able to vent that frustration, because they would be able to if we weren't taking on that role and it was another coach. There needs to be no pressure at home. We need to dial down any pressure. Our children are completely allowed to be themselves, and it should be a space where we can have really, really great conversations. When we do work with clubs or organisations or coaches, that if everybody is setting the tone and having the same values, actually lots of parents come and join it and behave in a similar way because they don't want to look any different to anybody else. And as long as everybody is doing it within that environment or around that environment, then these type of things can actually work. So we really set the tone. And I say to lots of coaches that, do you know what, if we've said to parents that we don't want them yelling instructions from the sides, which we certainly don't, if we run up and down and are joysticking our children all over the pitch, then for me, we've given parents carte blanche to do exactly the same behind us. It's the same if we start yelling things at officials, that if we're doing that, then we can't expect other adults behind us not to do the same thing or behave in the same way. So our whole role modeling, our whole setting of the tone, how we control the groups, why we coach in a certain way, what we do, if we can clearly communicate that, then that gives us a chance of our clubs and as coaches of us having really good environments around sport.
We're in this very interesting industry. It's always been, for me, fascinating that we are at the same time about progress, innovation, creativity, and excellence, but the industry itself is notoriously conservative. And I don't mean that in a political sense. People tend to do what they've always done, even if it's not working. And the greatest challenge for us is to get coaches to stop thinking about bloody physiology. I am a physiologist, so I can speak ill of my people, but to stop being so focused on the things you can see, you can measure, you can count, because sport is about all the things you can't see, can't measure, can't count. It's about experiences, relationships, connecting with athletes as human beings, as people. And through that process of connection, engagement, we can inspire their hearts and their minds. What is important and what is essential is that we shift past thinking that coaching and our relationships are built only on physiology and the physical elements of sport. But coaching's different. Coaching is the art of inspiring change through emotional connection. We're in the change game. Coaching is change. Coaches are so obsessed with measurement, with stopwatches, with counting laps. But where we see breakthroughs is when our art of coaching has inspired the heart and mind of the swimmer to say, you know what, if I choose not to breathe inside the flags, if I choose to count my strokes, if I choose to get to training early and work a little bit harder, every wish, every dream that I have will be mine. That power of choice, coaching, the power of choice, is really what our art form is about. It's not about the measurable, it's the immeasurable. It's not about counting the laps. It's about making every lap count.